Hello and welcome to another video from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about marriage. Now to start with, we got to go back to basics. What the Bible is actually about. People think that it's a rule book for how to achieve some kind of heavenly reward, which it is not. It's simply a written record of the war between civilization and creation. The war between Satan's empire and God's kingdom, the war between the angels and the demons. And so in that you have lists of rules that are part of God's law, and you have lists of rules which are part of man's law. Now, I've made videos before where I explain that there's two laws spoken of in the Bible, and that one of them is called the law of Moses. Well, this is man's law. This is, people think the law of Moses was God's law, and there is quite a bit of ambiguity because there are certain Bible characters that refer to the law of Moses as God's law, and then there are other characters who refer to God's law simply as the law, so you don't know. You don't know if this is talking about God's law or one of man's law, because it just says the law, or Torah, which is the word for law. I have a lot of subscribers that tell me that they believe in Torah. What they mean is they believe in God's Torah. Because they read the Bible, they see the word Torah, and they think that's a holy thing. But there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about Torah that is not about anything holy. It's about man's laws, which, as I said before, would sometimes be referred to as the laws of Moses. Because remember, when the Israelites came out of Egypt, God gave them His law, which was the Ten Commandments. Don't murder people, don't steal their stuff, don't hurt them, don't lie to people, don't pretend to love somebody so that you can get their guard down in order to take advantage of them. Those are the laws of God. Of course, as they're presented in our English Bibles, it's like no sex, drugs, or rock and roll, but that's only because human beings over the course of time have been able to sneak those concepts into God's Word. They're not in there. But once the Israelites rejected God's law, Moses broke the Ten Commandments, and he went back up on the mountain, and he got another set of rules. It was, I think, 600 plus rules that came to be known as the law of Moses. And over time, those laws grew and grew and grew and grew. By the time Jesus had gotten there, first off, you had God's law still, the Ten Commandments, but you also had those 600 rules given to Moses, and then on top of that, the Israelites had been conquered by the Egyptians, so they had a lot of Egyptian law had gotten into their teachings, and the Babylonians came in and conquered them, and they got a lot of Babylonian laws in there. And the Romans came in and conquered them, or the Greeks came in and conquered them, and then the Romans came in and conquered them. So they had all of these laws added to it. So by the time Jesus came along, there were tens of thousands of laws probably. And so even though Jesus was a really good teacher, he had to watch his steps. So a lot of times when he talked about the law, he just said the law. Other times he talked about the law specifically as the law of Moses, because at the time there was a lot of fighting over whether or not the Jews should just obey the law of Moses, or if they had to obey the law of the Romans, or if they had to obey all of those laws where they did not interfere with the law of Moses. And in their collective memory was still those Ten Commandments. So they knew that from the very beginning that was the law of God, but they had all this other stuff in there that they felt was like the law of God as well. Just like now, we live in the empire, and depending on what country you're in, you have laws, but all the laws are pretty similar. And a lot of people treat the laws of the land as if they are God's law, which they may or may, they may support or they may actually be against. And in fact, most laws are against God's law. So, now how does this relate to marriage? Well, in a lot of instances, people would ask Jesus questions about marriage, and he would relate to them what the law said about marriage. And he wouldn't explain specifically which law, but he would talk about God's law, the Ten Commandments, and then he would intermix the law of Moses, and sometimes he would actually intermix the Roman laws, which is the laws they lived under. In fact, by the time that Jesus came around, what they had was similar to what we have today. They had the law of the Romans, which would be like federal law, and then they had the law of Moses, which would be like state law. So they had to go by the law of Moses still. That was part of their state law, the state of Israel. That was their law. But they were still under federal law. And there's a lot of verses where if you're reading through the Bible, even in the English translations of it or your modern translations of it, you'll see that there is a clear distinction between the federal or the Roman law and the state law, which had become known as the law of Moses. And Jesus would usually try to make a point of, in some way, telling us which laws were God's law, which laws were the Israelite law, and which laws were the Roman laws. But over thousands of years of translating from ancient Hebrew into Greek, from Greek into Latin, from Latin into whatever your modern language is, a lot of that has become very, very muddled. And so the only way to tell who Jesus is talking about when he's quoting law is to go back into the original languages, or as close as we can get to the original languages. Look at some of the ancient documents. Look at the information that's found in a concordance or a lexicon or an ancient Hebrew or Greek dictionary or encyclopedia. And then we can kind of break down these verses where Jesus spoke about the law. Now, one that has come up today is where Jesus is being asked about the law of Moses or about divorce. And Jesus said, well, in the beginning God made them man and woman. And he didn't expect the man and the woman to be split apart. So he gave us Moses' law because he knew our hearts were crooked. And so Moses' law said you could divorce a woman. Very obvious that what Jesus is talking about here is marriage as it related to the ancient Israelite empire, the way that they perceived. So it's not just a legalism, but it's also part of their religion, because by that time, like I said, the Romans had control over everything, and so they had to go by Roman law, but they still, by tradition, would stick to this law of Moses. But they also still remembered the Ten Commandments and the original account in Genesis of how man and woman came to be. So if we look at this, Jesus said that in the beginning he made them male and female. And I'm not exactly sure how the verse is translated into English, but it seems like it says, in the very beginning man made the husband to leave his mother and father and stick to his wife and get married and have kids and never leave unless they filed for divorce. And so Jesus kind of made fun of that. And he said, didn't you read in the beginning that they were made male and female, and that a man will leave his wife, or leave his mother and father and cling to women? And so and then that really is how it's translated into Greek. The word husband doesn't appear anywhere in the original text. Wife doesn't appear. Marriage doesn't appear. None of those concepts appear. But Jesus specifically is saying that when men grow up, they will leave the family hierarchy to enter into God's creation hierarchy, whereas their family is basically their woman. And in my head, like I'm 60 years old, I've never had a girlfriend. I have fallen in love with a bunch of women over the course of my life, but it's just a secret love in my heart, or sometimes it's a love that I express. But so far, in 60 years, I've only fallen in love with women who are not in love with me. Now, there's a lot of women that subscribe to my YouTube channel, and men, and in all honesty, I tell them all that I love them. If I get on Skype, if you're one of my subscribers and you contact me on Skype or the telephone, usually by the end of our conversation, I'm telling you I love you. Most of my subscribers will say they love me back. Obviously, if I'm telling this to a woman, the feelings I have are different than when I'm telling it to a man. And there are some women that I have very special feelings for. But, it's not like there's any kind of relationship, because most of my subscribers are married, they've got a bunch of kids, they've got a bunch of grandkids, they love their kids, they love their grandkids, they may even love their husband to some extent. And so, no matter how much I love those people, it's not like there's ever actually going to be a relationship. It's just the fact that I love them, they love me. How much they love me, I can't tell you. If we had the time, I'd go through and tell you about how much I love each of them. I could tell you how much I love Carlos and Thomas and Shannon and all of my male friends. But that's not what this is about. This is simply about what Jesus was getting down to. He was saying that in the beginning they were made male and female. Now there's an issue with that that makes the verse seem rather odd, because it seems to most people, when you read the English translation, it's almost like Jesus is saying God never intended Adam and Eve to get a divorce. And he doesn't intend for us to get a divorce. He expects us to find a mate, stick to that mate, and for all eternity be stuck with that one man or that one woman. And I don't think that's what that's about, because remember, when he made Adam and Eve, he made Adam, it says he made Adam male and female. Now remember, Adam was all alone on the earth. So he said, I'm making you male and female. Adam, you're male and you're female. Now what that means for us, I don't know, but we know that later God said, this isn't right. So he took the female part out of Adam and made Eve. Right? So now Adam is no longer male and female. Adam is male, Eve is female. But they're both part of the same person. Think about that. God used dirt to make Adam, but he used Adam to make Eve. Now here's the issue. It says from the beginning God made them male and female. So, in other words, in Adam's life, he should never have had sexual relations with anybody other than Eve, according to that scripture, right? Well, if you look at how it's worded in the Hebrew and in the Greek, what it basically means is that men would love women, not individually. Now, for me, I've always had in my head that I want to find that special someone I can share my life with. That's like one man, one woman. But I'm also smart enough to know that every woman I see, I fall in love with. So if I got that one special woman, it would only be a matter of time before that initial infatuation ran out, and I would start having feelings for some other woman. See, that would seemingly break God's law. It would break that law that Jesus was talking about when he said, Moses gave us this ability to get a divorce, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. But he said that a man and a woman would be one flesh. The man would leave his mother and father in order to be one flesh with a woman. But in original Greek, it's not like that. It's like Adam, or a man would leave his mother and father to become one flesh with women. As it would also be true of women. Women would leave their mother and father to become one flesh with men. So they're going from one level of the hierarchy into a different level of the hierarchy, which makes perfect sense. Now, Adam was not Eve's boyfriend. Adam, if you look at how this thing it came about, Adam was Eve's brother. They were brother and sister. So that law that applied to Adam and Eve, if we were to say today that God's law was like that's God's law, you have to do what Adam and Eve were supposed to do, which is always stay with your sister. I don't have any sisters. And not only that, in our culture, it's really not frowned upon for brothers and sisters to become mates for life, or whatever. So Jesus had to have been talking about something else here. And I'm not like, a lot of people say whenever I make these talks about husbands and wives and marriage and divorce, that I'm just an immoral man that wants to have sex with every woman on earth. Well, I'm not an immoral man, but I would like to have sex with every woman on earth eventually, not anytime soon, because as I said, I've never even had a single girlfriend, so there's no point in fantasizing about the entire planet of women becoming my girlfriend. But the fact is, it's just that when I read the Bible, I try my best to decipher exactly what's going on. And if you look at what's in the original Greek, it never matches what the churches teach. So I guess the whole point of this is that you can't make a blanket statement about marriage from reading an English or any modern translation of the Bible. In fact, because the ancient Greek language is dead, the ancient Hebrew language is dead, we can't make blanket statements about how God feels about things, even using the original language, because as far as I know, I am the most advanced translator of the Bible alive on the earth today, and I can't do it. So obviously these translators that work for the churches can't do it. I mean, it's very obvious they can't do it, because they're the ones that make our modern translations of the Bible, which are way, way, way off from what the original text said. And I mean, it's easy to see. It's not like something that you have to go down a bit very, very technical to figure out. So there are other verses that are very similar, and I've mentioned them all in different videos. But what I'm telling you today is that at least, I guess, in this one verse, which seemingly says God hates for men to divorce women, what is really said is that men, when they become grown-ups, they attach themselves to women, not necessarily to a woman, but to women in general, and women attach themselves to men in general. There isn't really anything in there about sexual morals involving marriage and husbands and wives and divorce. Okay, I know that it's been a while since I made a real Bible video, and this kind of is one, even though I didn't write a script and read it off my teleprompter or anything. But there's going to be people that aren't going to be pleased with this, and there's going to be other people who are very, very lonely who are going to get hope from this. That's the way, when I read the Bible and I read about all the wonderful things, and I think of 60 years living by myself, not having anybody to hold at night, not having anybody to kiss, no one to have sex with. My body, I can look at my body and I know what I'm supposed to be doing with my body. And I've never been given the opportunity to do those things. I've never been able to hold a woman through the night, or to express my deepest thoughts to someone while they're expressing their deepest thoughts to me. And I know that's wrong. Inside, I know that's wrong. What's right, I don't know, because I've never experienced what's right. I can tell you what I would like to do, but maybe what I like to do would be wrong, because I have no experience. Anyway, as always, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.